Hello again, friends. This is your boy, Pastor Chuck Mackey, with another episode of Things Worth Thinking About. This podcast is designed to plant focused word seeds for your day in order to harness your minds to meditate on what we need, on what is important. If not, it will take you, the mind that is, where it wants, and that is always away from God. Now, in our last session, we dealt with the topic of offense. We looked at what it is, how subtle it can be, its goals and effects, and how we can have the victory over this spirit every time. Today, however, we want to look briefly at an offense which Jesus had experienced and how it relates to our own negative encounters. I know that it's going to be a blessing to you, as it says as a reminder that offenses will come. Listen, they came to Jesus, so what do you think about you and I? But more than that, we want to know how we are to deal with them. So, buckle up, here it goes. In Luke chapter 4, Jesus has a standoff with Satan at a most vulnerable time in his life. However, Jesus uses the word of God and comes out of this time of testing victorious. The Bible states in Luke chapter 4, verse 14, that Jesus returned, that is, after this ordeal, in the power of the Spirit. He was now empowered and fully anointed for the work set out for him. In verse 16 of this chapter it says that he went to Nazareth where he had been brought up. In his excitement, he went back home. Jesus is now ecstatic to share his accomplishments, his power, and his ministry with his family, friends, and churchfolk. So, as he did as from a child, he went to the local church on the Sabbath and volunteered to read the Old Testament lesson. He reads a passage found in the book of Isaiah, which really was written about him anyway. I mean, this is his day of celebration now, of introduction to the world, of promotion, and he expected and wanted those he loved, knew, grew up with, and cared for to celebrate this success, this victory with him, and to benefit from what he was given for them. It was as if he had just received a spiritual master's degree, just opened his new mall or a private practice, and wanted to share his happiness with everyone. Now, friends, I want you to think of a time when you were having what you would have considered to be your greatest day at work, or received a pleasant surprise, whether money, a car, a promotion, a positive pregnancy test, a mortgage approval, or an overdue surprise visit, and couldn't wait to get home and to share the joy, or make a phone call and express your happiness, only to discover that those with whom you wished to break the news cared less about your good report. I mean, they were outright mean, ignored your story, were abrupt with you, dismissing you, sweating jealousy, while at the same time downplaying your emotions. I would like to know, friends, how did you feel? Can you remember that? Well, that's exactly what happened to Jesus as recorded in Luke chapter 4, verse 16 to 29. After Jesus had explained the passage to them and who it was referring to, they did not believe, but began to bring up his past and judge him by the child they always knew. They could not accept what he had become. And so in verse 28 it says that they were filled with wrath, that's anger, that's malicious thinking, evil intention towards him. So they led him out of the city and tried to throw him over the cliff on which the city was built. Now, Matthew's version of this story says that they were offended in or by or of or offended at him. Now think about that. One of our own goes away and returns home to build a clinic, a law firm, a bargain mart, or something to benefit the community. But all that we can see is the child he or she used to be and cannot accept the new person or support their business. Now that must have hurt him deeply. The very ones that he was sent to, the very ones who knew him best, and those who were his greatest motivations to become all that God wanted him to be, had rejected him. And as a matter of fact, if that was not enough, they tried to kill him. So he came unto his own, John chapter 1, verse 11 says, and his own did not receive him. Mark's gospel says that he, Jesus, could not do any mighty works there, and that they were amazed at that he was amazed at their unbelief. So we see that Jesus understands offense and rejection better than most can imagine. His balloons of congratulations, welcome home, thank you, we love you, were all deflated at once by the ones closest to him. You see, friends, many times it is the ones that are closest to us that have the ability to inflict the deepest wounds, simply because they are what we call bosom buddies, loved ones, and are the ones with whom we leave our hearts most vulnerable, most unprotected. Now, the Bible refers to an offense at times as a mental infirmity or affliction to the soul. As a matter of fact, as I pursued the Greek meaning of the word offense, it produced definitions like to crush, to tear, to wreck, to lacerate, to shatter, and disrupt, and to convulse with spasms. Sounds like a seizure to me. These are some of the effects that offenses can have on the entire person. Now, the Hebrew writer announced that we have a high priest who feels all of the discomforts and diseases of our infirmities, afflictions, offenses, because he was tested in every way, just as we are today. But he did not allow those fiery darts, those offenses, those temptations, those stingers to cause him to offend God. We see from this story that Jesus can certainly relate to our times of hurt and pain. He understands because he has walked it out himself. The good thing is that we have been given the opportunity to take our hurts to him as a recourse for our burdens. He himself invites us and says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, with a hurt that has been with a heart and hurt that has been scarred, and I will give you rest. And Peter reminds us to cast our cares on him. Why? Because he, Jesus, cares for us. So for the sake of time, we'll pause there. But in part 3, we'll go further into the topic of offense, drawing more from Luke 4:18, which says, to set at liberty those that are bruised. This, friends, is only the beginning. So, finally, friends, whatever things are true, whatever things are honest, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. And that's found in Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. Remember, you can take your mountain. Peace out.